best body for basketball, the best body for football. Well, it depends what position you're playing. But fighting, everybody has a fight in their DNA. So all styles, all body types can fight. And that's what's so amazing. You get a Paul Harris. He's an endomorph, man. But he found a way to fight that makes sense for him. That's why I always tell people, you got to fight according to your body type. And people think that's crazy. No, Muhammad Ali fought a certain way because he had certain attributes. He had a certain personality. Even your personality is very important. If he tried to fight like Tyson, it would backfire. If Tyson tried to fight like Muhammad Ali, it would backfire. I think everybody has to start with the basics, and then after 3-4 years of training, even maybe up to 5 years, now you got to specialize for what your temperament is, what your body type is, what your personality is, because not everybody wants to get it done in round 1. And not everybody is the type of person who's going to take it to the cards. And not everybody has a reach and speed to jab in and out. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to jab in and out like Ali. Dude, you have the attributes that Ali has. He was born with certain attributes. And everybody's born with an attribute for fighting, in my opinion. Everybody got this far because they can fight. Nobody got here this far without having some innate ability to fight, to defend themselves. So all our body types can defend themselves, but you have to discover what works best for that body type.
Right. Tyson's a perfect example of that.
Exactly. They thought he couldn't make it in the pros.
Oh,
they thought, oh, he's going to get killed in the pros.
Right.
There's never been a short guy. When Ali was dancing around, people were like, no, that's not going to work. He's going to get tired. When he goes to the heavyweights, heavyweights shouldn't bounce around. And Ali used to spar a lot with lightweights. He sparred 6 rounds with lightweights, then 6 rounds with a heavyweight. Why? Because he would play tag with the lightweight. It's just about speed and movement. You move twice as much with a lightweight.
What is your thoughts on hard sparring? Because when you see the Thais and the way they spar, there's a great benefit in that. I mean, there's a great benefit in that barely hitting each other's shit.
Yeah, I do that. I do a tremendous amount of that. One thing when people spar with me, they're like, man, you move so people are like, it's so seamless the way you move. And I do thousands of hours of live rolling and sparring, but a lot of those hours, I would say 80% of them is very light. Because I know the terrain. I just want to go through the sequences as many times as I can, and when I'm really, really warmed up, then I'll go hard. I'll start talking smack a bit in the gym, and I'll like, oh, come on, let's see what you got. And I'll tell the guy when it's time to go really hard. And we're having fun with it. For me, having fun is really, really important. Now, that's training for longevity. But if you have a fight, I think you need to do 6 weeks of hard sparring. Why? Because the speed of the fight is very particular. We need to get to fight speed. The actual speed of the fight, because you might get caught sleeping if you haven't done that. Now, if you have a tremendous amount of fight experience, you need less of that. So for instance, a Thai who's been fighting since he's 8 years old, he can tune up just on the pads and go fight. Why? He's been doing it since the day he can walk, almost. Like you look at a Mayweather. I can get Mayweather ready with just a little mitt work, put him in there, he's gonna be the world champion. Why? It's hardwired. If you look at a baby's brain, the baby's brain is not wrinkled like an adult's brain. It's wrinkled to a small degree. As he goes through his experiences, especially in the first 3 years of his life, his brain literally gets hardwired and wrinkled. And it gets less and less wrinkled over time. And when you're hardwired to do something, the likelihood of you needing to tune up is very minimal. Like, for instance, I remember looking at the biography of Mayweather, and he was saying when he would go to picnics with his family, his father would bring boxing gloves, and he would box with his cousins. They literally would be punching each other. So for him, he's been doing it so long. The more experienced you are, the less hard sparring you are. The more seasoned you are, the less hard sparring. You know what that is. You just need a little tune-up at the end. So if you look at George is a great example. He's super skilled and he's super healthy. Some guys get to the high skill level, but they're broken up. Their body's broken, their knee is broken, they barely have 3-4 fights left in them.
Right.
Do you want to get really, really good and then be broken when you got there? You finally, you've been cultivating these skills for 15 years. You get there. You get those skills that you wanted. Oh, I can't use them. Why? The machine is broken. I'm 38. I feel like when I was 20, personally. Because I spar, 80% of my sparring is very flow and relaxed. Like I train a lot with purple belts, blue belts and purple belts. Why? Because they couldn't hurt me if they tried. I just toy with them till I'm warmed up. I'm flowing. I'm not really working hard. I'm just flowing. I'm just doing my combinations. And then when I really want to have a good challenge, I'll take one of my elite guys, one of my pros, and I'll do 1 or 2 rounds with them. I won't burn my machine out. Like imagine driving your car at the red line all the time.
Yeah. Now that's a great way of looking at it. When you guys get ready for a fight, like say if you get George ready for a fight, How much time do you spend on working on his recovery from the workouts? Like, do you bust out the Tim Tam machine and ice things down? Like, how aware of you are you guys of, like, do you have a regimented program of how to recover from exercise?
Yeah, recovery is everything. So it's stress plus recovery equals adaptation. Stress plus stress equals detraining and injury.
Yeah.
A good trainer, he understands super compensation, right? You have stress, you have recovery, and then you have a new level of skill or ability. If you don't go through the recovery phase, you will not reap the rewards of your training. There has to be a recovery phase. Now, every athlete has a level of recovery that they can achieve. So as you get more experience as an athlete, your body can as you become as you're more and more fit, I should say, your body can recover from more stress. So I have to gauge how good my student is. It has to be challenging but manageable. If I make it too challenging, I'm redlining him. He's gonna break. His knee's gonna pop. He's gonna be unmotivated. If it's too easy, he's gonna be bored. I have to find the right amount of stimulus. So when I'm in the practice room, if I see George is just mauling guys and destroying them, I have to scale the workout so that it's harder. But I don't want to scale it so high as that I injure him and break him, or that he made it out of practice by a hair, and he's not motivated to do another camp. You know, we reach those high intensity levels periodically throughout the year, and they have to be done in a certain way that it's fun. Like, you know, George was like, you know, he was on your show and he was saying, I'll try to kill him in the practice room. Now, it's true, he's right, but I do it so rarely. I do it so periodically, and I make it a joke. That's why, like, what he was trying to say is that I brought in the guys in the room, and I was watching them spar with George, and they don't want to touch his face. This is when he was like a mega star, like he was the champ. Nobody wants to try to double leg him. Nobody wants to try to hurt him, because they're like, I'm not gonna come here in his house and try to show him. There's a respect thing. They're starstruck. You know, these young kids. So I would bring them in, and I'd be like, listen, guys, I'll give a speech. The first guy to double leg him, the first guy to put him out, I would put like a $5,000 reward.
To knock him out?
To hurt. If you knock George out, I'll give you $5,000. If you put George on his back, if you take him down, put him on his back, I'll stop the whole practice and praise you for 20 minutes in front of everybody in the gym. And students don't get praised by me very often. So George would be like, oh man, these guys, they're coming after me. And he would get riled up. And I would do this periodically, rarely, right? We're talking about world title fight, you know, stuff's on the line. And I need these guys to actually show me where George is missing something. Because when you have this perfect practice and you win all the time, what do you work on? Well, nothing went wrong. There's nothing to fix. So, I mean, there are times where we really redline.
Have you ever had anybody knock him out in practice and take that money?
Now, he's been dropped once in practice pretty badly. And it's a funny story, but the money wasn't on the line that time. There was no prize for that. One time he got dropped in practice, and I wanted to stop. I wanted to pull the plug. It was for a world title fight. He was fighting Dan Hardy 2 weeks before his fight. I was sure he was concussed. And I said, George, I'm pulling the round. There was one more round. He said to me, Coach, let me finish the round. I'm okay. Let me finish the next round. And I felt that if I pulled him, I would have killed his confidence. I would have killed his confidence totally. So I said, okay, you can do the next round. And I told the other guy he was sparring with, don't land a single glove, like I whispered to him. Not a single glove on him. Just take a mauling. And George went in the next round not knowing that the other guy's not allowed to hit him at all. And he just crushes the guy, right? He's just like mauls him and gets that. And I was really, really grateful for the other guy was a pro. I was very, very grateful that he took the beating that we asked him to.
Right.
And George after was like, man, I know it went bad in round 4, but round 5 was amazing. I was on fire in round 5. I said, you were. You were.
That's like sneaky shit.
He's like, that was round 4 was not. It was just a fluke, you know. Like this is what I'm gonna look like. Round 5, you know. I'm like, yeah. It's like, and it's a good thing it's Friday, you know, because I have the day off tomorrow. I'm like, George, today's Saturday. He's like, wow. He was shocked. He was like, today's Saturday. I'm like, yeah. And the UFC was there filming. So I had to like, look, guys, that footage can never air. You know, that footage got to disappear. You know, they're like, yeah, don't worry. You know, we understand the fight's on the line. And he was fighting Dan Hardy 2 weeks later. Yeah. That's why that fight he was doing a lot of wrestling. We didn't want to like even chance. I was sure he had a concussion when he was in that fight. Wow. Now pulling the plug on that fight, a lot of people would be like, hey, you put his health on the line. You're right, but it's so much pressure. First of all, George didn't. It has nothing to do with UFC. We kept it from UFC. Like, we told the camera guys, bury this. Like, don't report it. Like, George would never want to back out of that fight. It was 2 weeks from now. Everybody's coming to watch this fight. Like this fight, you know, it's been on what do you call it, the prime time? It's been like 3 weeks they're filming. You know, like this is happening. This fight is happening no matter what. You know, George is in that mindset. And but he went there honestly, like you know, after he got dropped pretty badly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, you know, Forrest Griffin got knocked out twice before his fight with Anderson Silva. Twice. And apparently one of them was real bad.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think
dangerous.
he was sparring with Vanderlei. And apparently you don't spar with Vanderlei.
No.
It's just fights. Yeah. I mean, he's old school, shoot the box, especially back then.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Forrest won't really talk about it too much because he doesn't want it to be perceived as an excuse. But I mean, how many times have fighters done that? Many fighters have done that.
Countless.
Yeah.
To the point where like I just let the fighter decide, unless I really feel like it's urgent, which is rare that I've actually had to intervene, because at the end of the day, when are you 100%? It really rarely happens. There's always something.
Right. But the thing about getting knocked out is that if you get knocked out 2 weeks ago, your odds of getting knocked out are significantly higher.
I know, man. It's crazy.
And Dan Hardy's a really good striker.
Oh my God, that left hook! If it would have touched George, George would have been out like a light. He's got a crazy left hook. Plus, George was hurt 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
Thank God it worked out well.
Yeah, it worked out great. Yeah, it's the balancing act of being a trainer is not something that I envy.
No, it's tough. It's tough because I care for these guys, honestly.
Yeah,
it has
sure you
nothing
do.
to do with the business or the money. I couldn't care less. Like, I could not care less. But I know that guy, he's on a one-way track. So if I'm telling him no, hit the brakes, and he's saying we're going, that break in harmony is going to create a friction and create a doubt in the fighter.
Right.
You know, are you all in? Are you all in? You know, because if you're not all in, you're going to scare your fighter. There's that to consider as well.
Yeah. When you look at the crop of up-and-coming talent, I mean, this is such a crazy time for MMA. I think when you look at these new guys, like Zabit is one of my favorite guys to watch, because he's this new crop of guys that can do everything, and they're so high level by the time you see them. Like the first fight I saw of Zabit inside the octagon, you know, I've seen him on video before, but seeing him live, you're like, holy shit!
He's amazing.
But he's not just amazing. It's like this is this next level. Like there's another level. Like we've seen these elite fighters, and everyone's great at jiu-jitsu. Everyone's got great takedown defense. Everyone knows how to strike. But then you're seeing this new flavor. Okay, the frequency's now higher. And it just seems to me that every year or so, there's these new guys that jump through, and you're going, okay, well now the frequency's quite a bit higher than it was before.
It's seamless.
Yeah.
The transitions are more and more seamless, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like you're saying they're processing it faster.
Yeah.
And as they're doing the takedown, like Demetrius is flowing into an armbar before
Right.
the takedown is even finished.
Yeah.
And you're like, the next generation is watching that, and they've adopted that now.
Yep.
So they're gonna flow into a transition into an like it's getting more and more seamless. Their computers are computing faster and faster information.
Yeah.
They're thinking what they're gonna do on the ground before it hits the ground. It is incredible.
And they know what can be done now. They've seen it all.
possibilities.
Yeah, so they have this database in their mind of accomplishments that have already been achieved by other fighters. Yeah.
They've been awakened.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. When you stop and think about when you first got involved in the sport and then look at the level that fighters are at now, there's not really a commensurate sport in terms of like modern mainstream sports where people have achieved such an incredibly high level of proficiency that so far exceeds where it was a decade ago or 2 decades ago. There's really no comparison.
The growth rate is ridiculous.
It's fucking
incredible.
amazing. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the growth rate in this sport is incredible, and this is the sport that has the most amount of variables in terms of combat sports. The most amount of variables in terms of what a fighter can do to you.
There are more ways to win than any other combat sport, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it's... See, the more you limit an athlete, the more it's about torque. So, for instance, if you look at sprinting, if I were to race Usain Bolt, and I had all the best trainers, the best sprint coaches, and Usain Bolt had the most mediocre sprint coaches, and we race when we're both 20 years old in our prime, who's going to win? You. I appreciate the
Yeah,
confidence.
I mean, it's a joke question, right?
Wait, he's gonna win,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Put us in MMA. We're the same weight class, same height, everything's the same. I have the best coaches. He has the worst coaches. Who's gonna win?
You're gonna fuck him up.
I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Because coaching now has a greater influence. You know, sprint coaches say, we can make you faster, we cannot make you fast. You have to be born fast, or we could shave off a few milliseconds.
Yeah.
In MMA, we can make you, I can take a regular Joe and get him all the way up to UFC. I can't make him UFC champion. I won't say I can make him UFC champion. To be UFC champion, you need a talent.
Right.
Okay, there's a talent there to be in the 1%. But to get you to UFC, because there are so many possibilities, there are so many ways to trick your opponent, there are so many ways to turn the tables on him, the torque no longer matters, or torque is less significant. So if we're talking about football, where I'm only allowed to do these certain maneuvers, trickery is put to the side. You're not allowed to trick me. But in MMA, you're allowed to trick me any which way you want. There are very few little rules, okay? But outside of these barred rules, these barred maneuvers, you can trick me any which way you want. So what happens is you take your opponent into a maze. You take your opponent into a world where torque doesn't matter so much. And that's why the more restrictive a sport is, let's say for instance boxing. Boxing is more restrictive than Muay Thai. So the guys with torque are going to do better in boxing than they will necessarily in Muay Thai. Because in Muay Thai I can use more trickery. I could be a little dweeb and just beat you with clinching, or I could beat you with a trick kick, or I could beat you with a back kick. Now, for instance, a back kick, anybody can generate knockout power with a back kick. However, with a right cross or left hook, not everybody's going to have that bone-crushing power. However, if you teach somebody how to throw a proper back kick, which you know because you got the best back kick in the game, you can teach a regular Joe in a few years how to generate knockout power. So now he has that element on the table. So because MMA is so you know, there's so few rules, we have a greater environment for the intellect to shine.
You said something once to one of your fighters in between rounds, and it really stood out. You said, I want you to overwhelm his mind with possibilities. Like
Right.
you're overwhelming him. You're making him think about all the potential variables that are coming his way.
Right.
Like, that is a great way to put it.
We talk about variety. So everybody's looking for a pattern. If I do jab, jab, cross, and I do it 3-4 times, the fourth time you're going to see it. It's going to be slower to you. Why? Because your body's going to, your brain is, again, this is all hypothetical. This is just my personal experience. I'm basing this on my own personal experience. When somebody does something to me a second or third time, I see it. Personally, I feel like I'm perceiving it slower. And I have a window to counter it. However, when I spar with George, George is the trickiest guy, I'll tell you why. Because he has so many tricks, he has so many attacks, that he rarely ever shows you the same trick twice. And he's the master at adapting. So if you do a trick on him once, and you try it again, he's going to shut you down. So look at all his rematches. When he rematched BJ Penn, when he rematched Matt Hughes, every time they rematched, it was progressively worse. The third time he fought Matt Hughes was even easier. Don't try the same trick on George twice. You're going to get crushed. And I think that's why me, as a martial artist, I developed like a lot of variety of skill. Because every week I'd have to come up with a new trick, or George is going to shut that down. So after 10 years, I started becoming like a trickster. You know, what other magic trick can I get away with one time? Because next week I need a new trick, because it won't work on him again. He's going to get wise to it. He's a master at it might work once on him. The second time, you're going to get shut down.
Well, I feel like that was a factor in Dominic Cruz losing to Cody Garbrandt.
Exactly.
Because those alpha male guys had seen that trick so many times. They're like, okay, we can, like, apparently Justin Buchholz can imitate Dominic Cruz in training, like that weird herky-jerky movement with the hands down.
Exactly.
He's a weird one, man. He's one of the weird, out of all the fighters I've ever watched fight, Dominic might be the weirdest.
I agree.
Because you look at him and he's, first of all, he's a great guy. He's a very smart guy, but he's crazy in weird ways. Like, one of the things he says, like, I'm just not very flexible. Like, why are you even saying that? Like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. Like, why not get more flexible? It's like, it's not like saying, like, oh, I'm too short. Well, you can't grow, so you're fucked. You know, you're never going to play basketball. Saying I'm not flexible enough is
That's
like
an easy fix.
That's the dumbest thing to ever say. It's like, I mean, it's so much more dumb than I'm not strong enough. I mean, well, if you gain weight from muscle, you might not be in that weight class anymore. You got a real problem there. But I'm not flexible enough. You got zero problem. You just have to stretch.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stretch.
Right.
Like we were talking about jiu-jitsu techniques. It's like, oh, I can't play that high guard shit. I don't have any flexibility. I'm like, oh, okay. What are you saying? Like that doesn't make any sense. And like head kicks and things along those lines. He's like very stiff in his legs with throwing kicks. I'm like that's
an easy fix.
Yeah, that's an easy fix. Why would you fix that?
That's a good question.
But also the mindset of a champion in this same guy who just fuck it, I'm not flexible. Like I don't even understand how those things live together in the same mind.
If I was training him, I would make him head kick. Like that's what I would insist on. Head kicks have to be there because he doesn't knock guys out with his hands. So the head kick has to always be a possibility, always a threat, and then you will knock out guys with your hands because they'll have their high guard up because they don't want that kick, and then the uppercut will come, the body shot will come, the back kick will come. I'll make him back kick for sure. Like if you don't have power in your hands, you need to back kick. You need to head kick. Those are two weapons that can always knock a guy out. So you don't back kick, you don't head kick, you never score knockouts.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's did you see this Stephen Thompson thing with Darren Till where he wants them to outlaw that side kick to the knee?
No, I didn't see that.
Well, apparently his knee got really fucked up in the Darren Till fight. You know, what do you think about that side kick to the knee that everyone's doing? Not even the oblique kick, just a front leg side kick to the knee. The same way Yoel Romero used it on Robert Whittaker, fucked up his knee in the first fight, and then Whittaker used it on Romero like right away in the second fight to fuck up his knee.
I think it's a legitimate kick.
Yeah,
it's a legitimate 100% kick. It allows the smaller, weaker guy to hurt the bigger, stronger guy.
Well, and in the case of Darren Till, it allows the bigger, stronger guy to hurt the other big, strong guy.
Of course. If it works for the smaller guy, it works for the bigger guy.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just a legit, I think so too. It's a legit technique you have to prepare for.
Yeah, exactly. You're standing in a way that, you see, when somebody's standing sideways, they're harder to punch. They're easier to kick. So you're saying, look, I want to stand in this way where I'm harder to punch, but I don't want you to kick me. So if I stand square, I'm more susceptible to back kick, more susceptible to punches, but less susceptible to leg kicks, or the oblique kick, or the side kick to the knee, or whatnot. Now, I'm not saying to you, don't punch me, because I'm more vulnerable this way. So whatever your vulnerability is, you chose that vulnerability by standing sideways. Why don't the Thais stand sideways? Because they know they're going to get chopped to the leg, right? They're always fighting good kickers. They're always fighting amazing kickers. When you go to Thailand, the guy may be a good puncher, but he's for sure a great kicker. Like, you're not going to run into a guy who doesn't know how to kick. They all know how to kick knee and elbow, and some of them know how to punch really, really well also. So they stand in a way, Muay Thai has developed in a way that's very anti-kick, anti-knee, anti-elbow. And it's not as defensive to the punches. So if I want to avoid punches, I'll stand more bladed. Let's say I'm fighting like a BJ Penn, who's very heavy-handed and more of a puncher. He doesn't kick much. Well, I'm going to stand bladed, like you see with George. We made him drop one hand. Why? So he can use his jab from down to up, right? Because it's faster, has a greater reach, and it's harder to counter. Whereas if you would have stood more square, Muay Thai, it would have been useless because BJ doesn't kick. But then you'd be more open to punches. Right. So the way you're standing, the way a Wonder Boy is standing, the antagonist to that, the antidote to that is that kick. So how could you stand that way? Just switch the way you're standing, and now, now you're more open to punches. But that's adaptation. That's what fighting is about. Yeah, it's rock paper scissors. If I use rock, I don't outlaw paper. I don't say everybody, hey, nobody's allowed to use paper. No, but that's the antidote to what you're doing.
Yeah, and when the Thais fight, they have that very light front leg, which would prevent that front leg side kick to the knee. Because they're always very light, so if you kick the knee, it's just going to go backwards.
But to stand that way, they're standing that way at a cost. Yes. Punches.
And also the cost, they don't have the ability to use that movement, that front leg movement the way that Wonder Boy does too. Wonder Boy is the master of the front leg. Like he's the best at standing completely side kick. When he fought Johnny Hendricks, a good example, he threw a side kick to the body. Hendricks stood there, and then he went to a roundhouse kick to the face with the same leg.
Masterpiece.
And Hendricks, you could see, was like, fuck. Like, what is this guy doing? It's like, thump, okay, back, oh, shit. Like, he thought, like, yeah, you got me with that, but that's not a big deal. And then pop, he gets roundhouse kicked in the face.
That was a masterful performance.
Yeah, it was one of his best, for sure.
It was incredible.
Well, it just shows you the difference between a guy who is, just trying to, like, kind of plot in with a limited movement, and a guy like Wonder Boy, who's just one of the most difficult guys to sort of pin down.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, his style is very unique, and I'm fascinated with him, and I'm really fascinated right now with Michael Venom Page. Been watching. Do you see his pro boxing fights?
No, I didn't see.
Right now, he's a can
Actually,
crusher.
I saw one. Yeah.
He's a can crusher. He's fighting these guys, and they're setting him up for these spectacular knockouts.
Right.
But it's still that blitz point karate style that Raymond Daniels has, that a lot of these guys have, and Raymond's obviously adapted very well for kickboxing.
I've trained with Raymond quite a bit.
He's a beast.
You got to get him on the show, man. He's such a great guy.
To.
Yeah, I have to connect you to.
Okay.
He's amazing.
Yeah, we had talked a little bit in the past about perhaps doing something on Twitter.
He knocks guys out in about 90 seconds on a regular basis. And how does he do it? He does it with the back kick. He's the master at finding a place for the back kick. You don't want to get hit with his back kick. Like, I know you got an incredible back kick. I bet you it's more powerful than his. Okay? But I'll tell you one thing. He will fit that back kick
everywhere.
Everywhere. And he'll do it in a way you won't see it coming. It's going to hurt so much more.
Yeah.
Now, he rarely knocks guys out with his hands. He does surprise guys with his hands every so often. But that back kick, you don't want to be there.
Well, he seems like he's getting better with his hands.
Yes,
his hands are improving. But
he trains a lot.
Yeah.
He trains a lot, that guy.
I'm sure.
I mean, he's still at it.
And he's, what, 35, 36 now?
Yeah, I would say around there.
That one, was it, what's his name? Ombang? Is that the guy he knocked out with that touch front leg side kick and then jumped up in the air and hit him with a spinning back kick to the face? Woo!
That's
that was some
unbelievable.
video game shit.
That's unbelievable.
He just jumps up, top, pop, and then hits him with the second kick. Yeah, that's a standard kick.
Yes, it is.
You know, for Raymond Daniels.
But he does it the best I've ever seen, personally.
No one better. You know, you got to go back to like Rick the Jet Rufus.
Oh my!
You know, when he fought that really classic fight where he fought that Thai fighter and he got his legs chopped out, and everybody was like, "Oh shit!" Then people really got to understand the Muay Thai. But he hit that guy with that same kick, that front leg side kick, and then spun in the air and hit him with the turning side kick in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love watching that point karate style, that blitz style.
I love it.
I love watching that enter into MMA because I used to spar with a lot of those guys, and it's fucking hard to deal with. Those guys that are really good at that fast sprint at you blitz. And when you do that, and then you also have takedown defense and Muay Thai skills and jiu-jitsu, it's like, fuck, man, that's a lethal skill to have.
I love doing boxing, Muay Thai, karate, taekwondo. I love blending it all. I believe all of it.
Here it is right here. Boom!
Yeah. Just
play that back again. I mean, come on, man. This is fucking crazy shit the way he does it too. He just hops up, touches you with the front leg, pang! And the second one, and look, he looks down like he's in a fucking video game. I mean, that is crazy that this guy is pulling that off. That was when he was in Glory. Look at this. Tap. Boom!
Oh,
I mean, come on, man. Who the fuck does that?
And he does that all the time, man. That's not like a one-off.
No, he could do that all day. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of those karate guys that have that skill set. They can do, like, you know, those breaking demonstrations where they hold up pads. They'll do 360 wheel kicks and break pads. I mean, there's some legitimate karate and traditional martial arts techniques that are finding their way into MMA.
Absolutely. You just have to know how to use it.
Yeah.
And just because a karate guy got beat up by a grappler doesn't mean all the karate he's trained is not good.
Exactly. He needs to learn how to grapple.
Exactly. He needs to learn how to stay on his feet. He needs to learn how to grapple. And he needs to learn to set that kick up in a way. Because the thing is, if you're always fighting another karate guy, and then you fight a boxer, the boxer's behavior is just different. You have to get, it's like what we were saying before, you have to get used to it. And then all of a sudden, you saw the same movie 100 times. You know how to deal with it. You know, it's like you watch the same movie over and over again. You start predicting what the scene is going to be. You're not caught by surprise. When you're caught by surprise, you're done.
Right.
You never done jiu-jitsu before, and I'm doing an armbar, a basic armbar. You're getting caught with it. You know, that's why I believe you got to know everything out there, but you got to specialize. Don't try to master everything. Know everything. Like, I like to know Darce, triangle, heel hook, even though I'm not necessarily a Darce guy. But I want to know everything about Darce. I don't want to drill it all day long. I just want to know about it.
Right.
Because when you're trying to put your Darce on, I know what you're trying to do. I'm familiar with what you're going for. I can break out of it.
You don't go for Darces?
I do. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's my best submission. I do Darces, no doubt about it.
Well, you don't have the longest arms in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you ever try a Japanese necktie?
Yes, I don't use them that much, but I'm familiar with
It's
them.
the solution for guys who don't have long arms.
Really?
I have short arms too, but the Japanese necktie, I became a specialist at that.
Really?
Yeah, you get that clamp over the top of the neck, and then you drop down with the left shoulder, and you tuck the head into the forehead, and you hook one of the legs with your leg.
Yeah.
And you crank that neck up, so it's you're pushing in with your chest, and then cranking neck. It comes
I'll
quick
sharpen it
too.
up.
It's a nasty neck crank. I love it. It's just so good, and it's also it's there a lot. It's one of those techniques that they're not aware of the danger of that one position. You know, there's a few guys that are really good at it, and you know, whenever you feel that arm going underneath your neck, you're like, "Fuck, I gotta get out of here," because it's such an easy one to cinch up. Like the darts is hard. It's hard to cinch and to get
For
all
us,
the way up.
for us.
Yeah.
Like I remember working with Marcelo. Like I got to train Marcelo Garcia, and we were doing just a one-on-one training session, and he was telling me he doesn't like darts. And I was like, he doesn't teach darts, doesn't believe in darts. And I'm like, but your arms are short, you know? If you have this monstrously long guy, you won't tell him to do darts? No, don't do darts. It's not good. It's not good submission because your arm's in the way. I'm like, dude, there's some guys with the most devastating darts. Is like, you don't want to be in their darts. You know?
Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't like leg locks. He says, no, leg locks are no good. But
Oh, that's so crazy.
imagine if Paul Harris walks into your gym and you're like, no, don't do leg locks. It's like, dude, that's his game.
But he tapped out Rico Rodriguez with a heel hook
You're right.
in Abu Dhabi.
He would tell you
I was there.
it's not a good submission. It shouldn't have worked.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. He was telling me he doesn't like his guys to wrestle. I'm like, why? I'm like, when you fought Jake Shields, you did a single leg and you took him down. He's like, he shouldn't have fell. So Jake Shields shouldn't have fell, he said. But I'm like, your wrestling is good. He's like, no, you shouldn't wrestle a wrestler at all.
What?
And I was like, I get what you're trying to say, but there's a time and place where I'll wrestle a wrestler when I see a good vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he's I think he's changed over the years, but when I rolled with him, he was like at the top. You know, I wouldn't question him. I wouldn't be like, you know, who am I to tell him I don't agree? You know, like he doesn't like Kimura. He would tell me, no, don't do Kimuras.
Too much muscle, right? That's what he said.
It's a power move. Yeah, it's a power move.
Yeah.
But when you look at his career, all the things he doesn't like, that's what he's been caught with. Like Braulio caught him with the Dars.
Jacare caught him with the Kimura. Yeah.
You know, like,
that's right. Braulio caught him with the Dars. Didn't who else caught him with the Dars?
And Braulio caught him once or twice. Once, I think.
Drysdale. Drysdale caught him with the Dars. Yeah. Dars work real good.
They do. If you have the attributes, they're great.
Yeah. Why would he say he doesn't teach the dart? That's so crazy.
I think he's got short arms, and for him it doesn't work. He doesn't like arm triangle. Says no, forget the arm triangle.
What?
Yeah, I'm like, dude.
That's
you ever feel George's arm triangle? Like
arm triangles are nasty.
This is destructive.
Well, a guy like George is such a crusher.
He's got long arms too,
and he's heavy.
Oh my!
He's just heavy. Puts that weight on you. He knows how to control and squish.
I would never let my arm get across my butt because I know it's over. There's two things you never want to give George: Kimura, because he'll rip your arm off, and two, arm triangle.
Yeah.
Katakatami.
Yeah. There's Rafael Lovato. He's got a nasty fucking arm triangle. You know, he's competing in Bellator now. I'm always fascinated when I see like super high level jiu-jitsu guys that enter into MMA because I'm like, okay, well for sure these guys who are used to just training MMA and they are not going to know what the fuck hits them when a guy like Roger Gracie grabs them. Or like a guy like Damian Maia. And we've seen it time and time again. There's a difference in the level. And so the argument is always, should you be what's the best way to be? Is the best way to be an elite specialist at one particular thing, like a Raymond Daniels or a Wonder Boy? Or is it to be a guy who can kind of do everything really well, like George?
So here's my perspective on that. That's such a great question. I mean, that's the heart of training. You could flood your system. So what does that mean? When you flood your system, you're giving your student too many things to master. He's just really not good at anything.
Right.
Or you can bottleneck him. You're giving him too few skills that people know what he does. Like for instance, a classic example is Chuck Liddell. He went on a tear for a while, but he's still the same guy. And after a while, the next generation, they understood what he does. They understood the pockets where you're safe, where you're in danger. Like Mashida's a great example. Early on, he was such a mystery. Now we're like, okay, we get what he does. We've understood his patterns. Patterns are huge in fighting and in life, period. Human beings are pattern detecting machines. Whether they know it or not, whether they can verbalize it or not, we are pattern detecting machines. That's why I like sparring a lot, because sparring, I've had 1,000 people throw a right hand at me. When you throw your right hand, my mind subconsciously is going to compare that right hand you're throwing to 1,000 different right hands I saw, and it's going to say it matches this one the most. Again, this is my narrative. And this is what I see. And this has personally been my experience, right? When I train somebody who's new and you throw a punch at them, they flinch. Why? You've overwhelmed them with information. But after a while, they see a punch and they're relaxed and they see it and it seems slow motion because at first it was too fast for them. It was too much to compute. So my students, what I do is I give them a small amount of technique, and when they get better, I give them a new technique. So I want them to get a certain level of competence with that technique, and my standard is it has to be instinctual. If the technique is instinctual, I've taught it to you well, meaning if you've done it live on the mat, on a regular basis, you execute on a regular basis, it's time for me now to give you another gem. Because if I don't give you another gem, I'm going to bottleneck your art. You're going to become too predictable. But if I give you a gem too early, if I give you another technique too early, I'm flooding your system. I'm flooding your game. Your game is diluted. It's just too weak. So with George, we're always reinventing George for the next fight. We're always adding one new or two new gems, depending on how much time we have. But there's always an X factor. When you fight him, he's not going to do the same patterns we did the last fight. You could watch his tape. That's why I told George, why is it harder to be champion than to become champion? Because when you're champion, everybody's watching you and studying your patterns. It's a matter of time before you're old news. So you got to reinvent yourself before the next fight. That's why I didn't want him fighting 3 times a year. I told him to fight twice a year. And they were making comparative with Chuck. I got a lot of heat for that. They're like, Chuck fights 3 times a year. George should fight 3 times a year. We're like, we'll see how our careers go. I want George to fight twice a year. Because to reinvent him takes 6 months. We're going to do that twice a year. That way he'll be champion longer. I told him, I used to tell him when he became champion, I said, I want you to be champion for 10 years. It happens in boxing, it's going to happen in MMA for the first time. There's going to be a champion for 10 years. I used to tell him that when he first won the belt. And he was like, really, how are we going to do that? We're going to cycle, we're going to do only training camps that last 6 months. You can only really do a training camp every 6 months. If you want to hit a new level, it takes 6 months. Every fight you're going to be at a new level, and you're going to do something nobody knows. They haven't seen it before.
How did you come up with these numbers? What made you decide?
I read one very influential book called The New Power Program by Michael Kogan. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have heard of the book. I haven't read it.
He says, look, there's 2 programs. There's either, he says, look, if you can do a training program shorter than 6 months, you're either Superman or you're dumb. Like he formulated it the way he says, I never met Superman. A real training program is 6 months long. So that just always really influenced me. I think his book was really, really basic, and this is one of the first books I read on training, and it really influenced me. He teaches in the book periodization, but he dumbs it down really, really well. So if you read Tudor Pompa's book on periodization, it's just too much intellectual jargon. It's hard for a regular Joe, especially at the stage I was then, to read that book and understand what he's trying to say. It's like today I can understand it, but Michael Kogan made it really simple for me. And he's like, look, if you want to train and reach a new level, it takes 6 months. This is the body's natural process. So it would be like trying to, plant a seed and have an apple tree in 3 months. No, he says, no, the apple tree grows at a certain rate. So the human body does things at a certain rate. There's no way around it. You need stress, you need recovery, then you have adaptation. Here's the cycles you have to go through to reach a new level, and it ends with a plyometric cycle. Now today, I don't really use that system anymore because I've found better ways over the years.
It ends with a plyometric cycle?
Yes.
Why does it end with a plyometric
because
cycle?
Because you have to hit the speed of your sport. So for instance, let's say you do a lot of back squatting. Okay, let's say you do back squatting, and your numbers on the back squat go up. Do you think that's going to make you a better fighter?
No.
No. Why? So why do the squatting?
Because it'll make you stronger.
Okay, but does it make you stronger on the field, in the octagon?
It can make you stronger in certain positions.
In certain positions.
Yes.
Now, I think Mike Kogan would say it can make you stronger in certain positions if you can apply that force over a certain time. So power and strength are 2 different things. Strength is, can you lift that bar? It weighs 500 pounds. You can lift it? Okay, good. Can you get that bar off the ground and locked out in 1.5 seconds? That's the question that we want to ask for sports. How fast can you apply the force? That's power. Force over time, strength over time. So when you want to shoot a double leg, you have to do it in the window. So that's why the plyometric phase is the last phase. It's very important that you need to take all that strength you cultivated and translate it to a level of speed. So I need George to change level and explode in a fraction of a second. So that's why I like things like sprinting, track and field, etc. These are things done in a short period of time. The ground contact, the ground force reaction, the time you spend on the ground applying force into the ground. So when you want to apply force on a person, you first have to apply the force in the ground. and then that ground, then that reaction is applied into your opponent, right? So every action has obviously equal reaction. How fast can you apply that force into the ground? Now squatters, if I take you and I make you squat, a slow squat, down and up, I'm training you like a tow truck, right? Then I measure your vertical jump. Your vertical jump is going to have gone down after you've done 6 months of squatting. It's not going to have gone up. Why? Because you're training like a tow truck. You're telling your body, look, I need to lift lots of heavy weights in a slow fashion. However, if I make you do plyometrics or I make you do Olympic lifting, you know, Olympic lifting is very fast. It's 1.5 second contraction on the hamstring. 1.5 second. And there's a certain point where it's 0.5 seconds. Then I make you test your vertical. Now your vertical is gone up. So there's an element of speed. So Michael Kogan, at the end of the program, he does a 4-week or 3-week phase of, he calls it the link cycle, where you're doing plyometrics. This is very important.
That's fascinating. I've never heard it put that way, and I like that thought. I like the thought process behind it. I think there's a lot of people that are using a lot of plyometric drills now, and it's way more common when you see like training montages of guys hopping over hurdles. But I really have to think that George was one of the first guys I ever saw do that stuff.
I used to tell him, do you want to train like a tow truck or do you want to train like a Ferrari? Which one do you want to be? You want, like, if you look at Damian Maya, he's like a tow truck.
Yeah.
He's stiff. Even when he throws a punch, he's very stiff.
Yeah.
Why? Because years of gi training, it's like,
yeah.
I've trained my body to make an isometric hold, and now your body behaves isometrically. Why are you asking me to do anything different?
Right.
I never ask my body to do something in practice that I don't want it to do on fight night. So I do believe squatting is important. Squatting is important to develop a general strength. So let's say, for instance, you're always doing plyometrics. Well, you might have an overuse injury. Certain muscles are not being activated. You go on the squat rack, you do a few squats, and I believe you got to do squats, not too heavy, about 70% of your max, and do it fast. You'll still get all the benefits.
What about lowering?
Lowering how?
Do you lower it fast or do you lower it slow?
I lower it fast and up fast.
Really?
Yeah, so for instance, Fred Hatfield, he's probably said it best. Okay, he said, he's the first man to officially squat 1,000 pounds. He said, look, throw a paper. You take a paper, you crumple it up, and you throw it. It's too light for it to go anywhere. You throw it really hard, because it's so light, it doesn't go anywhere. Take a bowling ball. The bowling ball's too heavy. You throw it, doesn't go anywhere. You take a baseball, that's the right amount of resistance. It's the right amount of weight. Now you're going to apply more force on that baseball. You're going to get more force out of it. Why? It's in the Goldilocks range. So for instance, let's make it really simple. Okay, let's say you weigh 0 pounds. I put you on a scale, you weigh 0 pounds, you have a bar on your back, the bar weighs 100 pounds. Okay, so we're looking at the scale now. The scale says 100 pounds. The bar is on your back. Let's take away your weight just to make it really simple. You go down and up. The scale is going to read 101. That's the minimum amount of power you have to put into that scale for it to come up. So when you go down, the scale is going to say 100, 100. As you come up, it's going to say 101. For it to have a positive trajectory, you have to apply 101 pounds upwards. Downwards, and then the reaction will be upwards. If I put that weight on my back, if I put 70 pounds, if I take 70% of the weight, and I go up and down really fast on the scale is going to read 101 minimum. For me to, if I explode up really fast, it's going to read 101, 102, 103. Now I got the benefits of a maximum contraction. Let's say 100 pounds was the maximum you can lift, but I don't have the weight of 100 pounds on me. You know, somebody who really made this popular is Louis Simmons. He learned it from the Russians. You know Louis Simmons? Have you had him on your show?
Yes.
He's a brilliant trainer.
He's fascinating.
He's a brilliant human being.
Mind too.
He's out of his mind.
We interviewed him in his gym.
Really?
Yeah, in Columbus. It was great.
But he's a genius when it comes to lifting.
Yeah.
He's a genius. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. He read Super Training. I also read Super Training. And Super Training is about lowering the rates to the right amount and doing a plyometric with it. You get the same benefits as using maximum weight, but you don't get the side effects, the soreness, the injury, the redlining. You don't get any of that. So the Russians found a great way to apply maximum force on the bar, but they also get speed. They're not training like tow trucks, they're training like Ferraris. That's actually where I got the term from Louis Simmons. He really clarified it for me, made it really simple.
So like what kind of, say if you could bench press 315 pounds, what would you use?
You use between 65 to 80% of that weight and then just do it quick. Boom! Boom! You'll get the same amount of resistance if you do it quickly as if you had maximum weight. So he doesn't use maximum weight except for once a week. And the reason why he explains it is he says, look, you have proprioceptors in your system. Proprioceptors is like, it's what tells you if your arm is up or down, if your arm is bent to your chest, if your arm, if I close your eyes and I lift your arm, you'll be like, you lifted my arm. How do you know that? Proprioceptor. He says if you put on a let's say you're working with 75 pounds and your maximum is 100. When you go to lift that day on the competition day, when you get 100 on your bones, your body's gonna be like, hey, I've never felt that amount of weight. There's an arthrokinetic reflex. Shut the muscles down. We've never felt that weight. This is the narrative that he gives us. He says because you've never felt that weight, your body's it's not gonna allow you. There's a safety mechanism in your body. It says, look, this is we're not used to this. Let's not take a chance. And he says if you get your body used to that, the arthrokinetic reflex will quiet down and allow you to lift. There's an inner mechanism, a safety mechanism in the human body. So he says to bypass that, we do heavy weights once a week to numb that reflex. So, but the majority of the work is done with lighter and fast, 75%.
What do you think of like Pavel Tsatsoulinis's principles, like the strong first principles of, like say if you can do 10 reps of something, you don't do 10, you do 5.
That's exactly right. 100%. I've read all of Tsatsulin's works, almost all of them. He's a brilliant trainer. I agree with that 100%. Outside of competition.
Let's explain it to people.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let me. Okay. So let's say, for instance, let's say I'm a big believer in never being sore. You should train. The next day you should wake up feeling good. Okay. Now why?
How's that possible?
Well, because look, if okay, that's great. That's a great example. Let's say your energy levels.
We're talking about fit people.
Every human being.
So guys never worked out before?
Even first day, never trained.
How is it possible to work out and not be sore?
No problem.
Okay, here we go.
So, let's say there's something called rate of perceived exertion. Okay? So, let's say I make you do pull-ups, and let's say the maximum amount of pull-ups you can do, the maximum amount of pull-ups is 10. Let's keep a nice round number. At 11, you couldn't do 11. If I pointed a gun at you, you couldn't do 11. Should I make you do 10 pull-ups on our workout? No. I'm going to make you do 5. Why? Because I'm setting you up to work the next day. The next day we're going to do 5. And the next day we're going to do another 5. And then we're going to do 6. When 6 is really easy, we're going to do 7. Why? If you count, if you did 10 pull-ups on Monday, you're going to be sore till Thursday. Let's say it's really your max. So Thursday, you've only done 10 pull-ups. From Monday to Thursday, you've only done 10 pull-ups. Me, I've been doing 5 pull-ups every day. So I'm at 20 pull-ups already, 25 pull-ups. I have more volume than you. Now, if you add up at the end of the year who trained more, I've trained way more than you. So let's say I go to jiu-jitsu practice. I'm doing jiu-jitsu every single day, 3 rounds, 5 days a week. That's 15 rounds. You go in twice a week, but you kill yourself. You do 5 rounds each day. You push yourself those last 2 rounds. You burn yourself out. I still did 15. You're at 10. At the end of the year, I've done countless rounds. I mean, I've had so much more training than you. So how much training can we pack in the week? That's the real question. How much volume can you expose your athlete to? So I always tell people, look, exercise can produce energy. So let's say I'm feeling like a 7 out of 10. 10 being I'm really like energized. 1, I was like really lethargic, feeling like I need to lay down. And 7, I'm feeling good. Okay? If I get up and I do a right amount of exercise, the right amount, I can feel like an 8.5. Exercise can give me a tonic effect, like drinking this coffee. So let's say I just do some jumping jacks, I hit the back for a couple of rounds, I'm feeling good. Once you get that high, shut it down. Don't go into the phase where your body's beat up, tight, broken up. Don't redline the body. That's only for training camps, for a small period of time. Why? Because you get a little bit more from the system. But in the long run, you get less. In the long run, you've taxed the system. So if you do that regularly, by the time you actually get good, you'll be broken up. That's why I do a lot of flow training. Have you ever heard of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's flow?
No.
Okay, so Jamie, can you look up a flow chart? It'll be so much simpler. Like just put in flow in the workplace or flow chart. This is pure genius. This guy's pure genius. Basically, he went and he coined the term flow. So like when you're in a state of flow, we've all been in a state of flow. The number one way to know that you're in a state of flow is time flies by. I'm sure sometimes you've done podcasts and you're like, well, it's 3 hours already.
Yeah.
It was a great podcast. You know, the one where you have the worst guest or you're having the worst workout, it feels like every minute is an hour. That's a bad. You're not in a state of flow. And a state of flow is you're having the right amount of difficulty, but it's not so difficult that you go into stress, and it's not so easy that you're bored. It's the right amount of challenge. So let's say as simple as playing like Tetris. If I put you on a level that's too high, you're gonna play for 5 minutes. You're gonna be like, I'm done. If I put you on a level too easy, you're gonna be like, this is boring. If I put you at the right amount of level, see, that's a flow channel. So if the challenge is too high, you'll meet anxiety. If it's too low, you're bored. When I go in the practice room, I'm trying to create flow. I'm having fun. Training should be addictive. Imagine training was addictive. Everybody would train, everybody would be fit. But people always go into anxiety. They go and they slam their body. Then I have to convince you to do it again 3 days later, 2 days later. And you're like, dude, the mental energy is going to take me to get there. Like, it shouldn't be. Training should be a pulling force. It should be pulling you. You want to go training. If you don't want to go training, it's not fun. If it's not fun, you're not going to do a lot of it. And if you're not going to do a lot of it, you're never going to reach mastery. So how do I make it pleasurable? How to make it fun? I have to be in a flow state. And you can get into a flow state in almost anything. But when you're out of that flow state, cut it. We're going to get further. We're going to do more training if we cut it today and come back in tomorrow. Because I'm a big believer in consistency over intensity. Intensity should be done once in a while. Because by nature, intensity can only be done once in a while. If you're going hard every day, you're not really going hard every day. You can't go your max every day. There's a cost to going to your max. Can you sprint every single day? You cannot sprint every single day. It's ludicrous. You can sprint once or twice a week. The best sprinters in the world, they sprint once or twice a week. Nobody sprints every day. Because intensity, by nature, entails that you need to take a break. Because if you don't need to take a break, you didn't really go to your maximum intensity. If you lift your maximum lift, the maximum amount of reps, the maximum weight you can lift. If you do 2 reps, that wasn't your max. Because if it was, you wouldn't have a second rep in you. You understand? Right. I would have to give you a break for you to have a second rep. So we didn't find your true max, right? Intensity, maximum effort entails you have to stop. Because it's the maximum. There was no more reserves. There are no more reserves.
So what do you think about people that say there's no such thing as overtraining?
Here's the John Danaher narrative, and he coins it really, really well. He says, look, it's under rest. So he says, look, you can overtrain if you didn't give your body the rest later.
Yeah.
But he says, look, no matter how hard I push in practice, if I didn't kill myself, I can rest from it and recover and have super compensation. I agree with that.
Some guys have made great strides with just mental fortitude and mental strength, overtraining the shit out of themselves.
Okay, but can I ask you this?
Yes.
They were successful, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
But their bodies break down.
Right, but could they have been better if
Possibly.
they used flow? Exactly.
Right.
As
But
good as they
guys
were.
like Dan Gable, for example.
Right.
Like what Dan Gable essentially was done in his 20s, right? In terms of like his body's broken
Right.
down,
Exactly.
knee replacements, hip replacements, that kind of thing.
Let me ask you this. Who wins more often, Russians or American wrestlers?
Russians.
Every time an American wrestler wins, he's like some prodigy. He's rare. It's rare. It does happen, but it's rarely he's a technical master.
Right.
However, you have these Russian guys that win gold medals. You've never heard of them, and they're like Michael Jordans of the sport.
Yeah.
There's just so many of them. They train long, consistent practices, whereas in America we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday hard. We kill it, and then you rest Tuesday, Thursday. The Eastern Bloc had a totally different understanding. They're like, it's volume, volume, volume. Near the fight, short and intense. Only near the competition phase. But before that, it's the maximum amount of volume you can. Imagine me and you we're 2 athletes, A and B. You're A and B. You're training jiu-jitsu 3 times a week really, really hard. You're going all out. I'm training jiu-jitsu every single day. My average practice is 2 hours. Your average practice is 2 hours. But when you go in, you kill it. Like you go with all the black belts and you kill it. At the end of the year, I'm averaging 3 practices or 2 practices more than you. So I've had 100 practices more than you by the end of the year. 104 practices. Let's give 2 weeks for vacation. 100 practices more than you. 200 hours more than you have been training. When we roll, your intensity that you put on the mat is going to be irrelevant. Why? Because I've also tasted that intensity periodically. It's not that much of a factor now. When you go super aggressive on me, when you attack me aggressively, I have felt that. I know how to deal with it. Plus, I have an extra 100 hours on you, 200 hours. So I'm going to mangle you. You know what I'm saying? The volume is far more important than the intensity. The intensity, by nature, is need to be done periodically. If you do it every day, it's not intensity.
So how the Russians, how do they structure their training?
They're more playful. You know, they kind of warm up, they kind of flow roll, they kind of like, they do a lot of technique, high emphasis on technique. Now, a lot of people hearing this are gonna be like, well, the Russians also are funded by their government. You know, their government supports them a lot more than maybe an American wrestler. Okay, I agree with that. There are many factors. However, we cannot deny that they're technically, I hate to say the word superior, but they're technically more advanced, technically, when it comes to wrestling. They have a more of a flow understanding. They play around, and the practice gets more and more intense, until you see them going really, really hard. They're going live, you know? They're going really, really rough. But they were playing, they have a more playful attitude. Look at the Cubans. You ever see Cubans sparring? They're like 50 guys in the room. They're just touch sparring. There's no headgear. There's no mat on the floor. They're literally sparring on concrete. You think they're really trying to drop each other? They're on concrete. I mean, the Cubans are the top boxers. They consistently win gold medals. But in practice room, they're playful. Nobody gets hurt. Like you're saying, the Thais. The Thais are just, if you go in there and you kick a Thai really hard, you don't spar with you anymore. People are like, this guy's too amateur. There's a time and place for intensity. I'm not anti-intensity. I think there's a time and place. Like Angelo Dundee was probably arguably the greatest boxing trainer in history. He says, look, fighting is for fight night. In practice, it's only practice. George St. Pierre has that attitude, and I think that's why he's so good and so healthy today. You know, because he never hurts his sparring partners. People line up to want to spar with him. It's a joy to spar with him.
Yeah, I love this idea and I love this approach. I think that we have this attitude that you have to be tough. We have this attitude that you have to work hard. And I mean, I've fallen prey to that many, many times in my life, where you just got to be tougher. You got to work out harder. You got to push harder. But when I read Pavel's stuff, one of the first things that struck me is like, well, yeah, of course, if you just do 5 reps every day, and then you won't be sore, you could do it more often, and then your body, like, you get farmer strength. Like,
Exactly.
Where's farmer strength come from? Farmers
Exactly.
they're not going to exhaustion.
No.
You know, they're not like throwing hay bales to the point where, you know, they're heaving, they put their hands on the knees and like, come on, 5 more.
You should never be sore. If you're sore, you overdid it. Because I can't train the next day if I'm sore.
Well,
I open the wound.
every time I work out then.
What's that?
I said I've overdone it every time I worked out.
You may have. You may have. You gotta.
There's a lot of people listening to this right now going, wait a minute, what? How the fuck?
Make your workouts a 7 out of 10 and do them every day. You're gonna get far more training hours. You're gonna spike your metabolism far more often. Your energy levels, your mood is gonna be far more up, and training is gonna be more addictive.
Now, what kind of training do you do at this stage? Like, you're not competing, but you're constantly in there sparring with guys who are professionals and you're constantly training them. Like, what kind of stuff do you do?
I do jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, and a small amount of conditioning after practice. I'm too bored. I find jumping hurdles and throwing, like doing weights and stuff, me personally, I don't find that as I don't have to take that much enjoyment of it. I can do 5 to 20 minutes in a practice.
Isn't that because sparring is just so fun?
It's so much fun. I'm in a flow state. We're having fun. You know, we're wrestling. I think conditioning you can't get away with. You need it. You need it. And we got to talk about what George was saying on your podcast, that he doesn't do strength and conditioning. There's a language issue there. There's a language issue. And we got to talk about that because we've done tremendous amounts of strength and conditioning, me and George. Like tremendous, like barrels full. Okay. And but he has a different definition. There's a misunderstanding. Okay. So I really want to clarify that. But me personally, like, look, if we roll for an hour, for me it passes like this. Because it's so fun. It's so fun. We're having a good time. I'm fascinated. Like, oh, you grab like this. Like, I'm always learning new things. To do swing a kettlebell, to do push-ups, pull-ups, I can only do that for a finite amount of time. So I'll put a timer, 3 rounds, 2 minutes, and I'm doing it. And I bite the bullet and I do it. It keeps me healthy. But I don't go in practice to just do that. That I never do. It's always after my workout, after I do jiu-jitsu.
So you never have a day where you say, today I'm going to do Olympic lifting?
No, I don't think Muhammad Ali ever did that. Muhammad Ali never, he boxed and then he did his conditioning. Mayweather does his conditioning, then he boxes. It always came together. Why? When I go to the gym, I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go wrestle. I'm going to go box. I'm going to have a blast. Then I'm going to grab the kettlebell. I'm going to do a few presses. I'm going to do a few Turkish get-ups, and I'm done. Because I need to have some general fitness. You have general fitness, then you have specific fitness. Specific fitness is to get better at my sport. General fitness is to keep me healthy, strong, and allow me to reach new levels of athleticism that later, in the long term, can translate to my sport later. But if you just do your sport, in my opinion, your system's going to break down. Your back's going to break down. Your knee's going to break down. Your shoulder's going to break down. You need to stimulate certain muscles that are not getting stimulation in your specific sport. You create atrophy in certain muscles because you're not using them really.
Right.
I need to work my stabilizers. I need to swing the kettlebell. I need to squat. I need to do certain exercises.
Like what are the standard cores? Kettlebells is that like
Triple extension is number one. So any type of squatting maneuver. I don't particularly use the squat. I like to use
triple extension.
Triple extension. So your knee, hip, and ankle are bending. So like a squat. Your knee, hip, and ankle are bending. I like to jump. I like to throw the med ball a lot against the wall. I like to do hurdles. I like to do box jumps. I like to very low impact plyometrics. I like sprinting. Sprinting is huge. You ever do the beep test?
What's that?
Oh, you got the space for the beep test here. You got to implement beep test. It's the best way to do cardio.
Really?
You ever hear the soccer players use it a lot? It's a beep, right? You run, you beep, and then it beeps back. And the faster the beeps go, the faster you have to run.
Ah.
That's really amazing. Because what I do is I set a timer for 5 minutes. I put it on a high pace, like I'll put it 10 or 11, and I'll just shuttle back and forth. And it tells you how fast to run, the beep test. And some days I'll feel really good, I'll do 11. Because I know how fast I have to run to keep up with the beats. And it's amazing for cardio. It's short, sweet, painless, and it's very, it translates very well to sports.
Do you do Tabatas? Do you ever do Tabata?
Tabatas are good, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tabatas are good. If they're done well, they're good. But again, you have to do it in a way that doesn't create soreness. Because Tabata can create soreness. You have to be very. I wouldn't do Tabata kettlebell swing. That'll cook my hamstrings. I'll probably do like hurdle jump. Like you take a small hurdle and you just hurdle over it for 20 seconds.
Now, what you're saying though, like there's got to be a bunch of CrossFit people out there right now that are screaming into their phones.
They're wrong. All due respect. They're wrong.
I like how you say all due respect.
With all due respect, they're wrong. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
And look, if you like CrossFit, do it. Whatever motivates you, do it.
Okay.
CrossFit's problem is it's fatigue seeking.
Yes.
It says, look, go out there and burn yourself out.
Yeah.
That's totally wrong. They're not building any skill. Try to show me a guy who's a champion in CrossFit, champion in Jiu-Jitsu. That guy would need 2 lifetimes to reach mastery in both of those. Why? Because my CrossFit workout is going to tax me so much. I cannot learn armbar, sweep, triangle choke, double leg takedown, underhook. I've taxed my whole system. My system is in recovery. When your system's in recovery, what can you do but rest? You understand? Mm-hmm. Okay, Rafa Mendes. Do you think Rafa Mendes, arguably the greatest pound for pound, one of the greatest pound for pound jiu-jitsu guys in the world, do you think he's got a great CrossFit workout that he's really mastered, he's really good at? Do you think he has a great back squat? Do you think he's a great deadlifter?
Doesn't look like it.
No, he doesn't. Believe me. You think Gordon Ryan? He's a great Olympic lifter? No, they're always going to be at an amateur level in the fitness world. Why? Because if they were experts, they would have taken so much from their jiu-jitsu. Like look at George. He does gymnastics. Okay, and I'm the one I twisted his arm a little to put him in gymnastics.
Why? Because
I thought it would give him tremendous benefit because of the amount of, first of all, they use a lot of body weight, so it doesn't cost us anything neurologically. Body weight exercises are very easy to recover from. Body weight exercises are very easy on the nervous system. They use leverage instead of weights. Plus, the stabilizer strength is unbelievable. So, and of course, I wanted coordination. I felt George was a little bit stiff, mechanical. And the tumbling makes you more fluid. I think I